update our profile of a father and son racing team and show you how they've inspired similar pairings nationwide. But first, a story rooted in the very complexities of race, tradition, violence, and belonging. If you've ever seen a halftime show staged by the marching band of one of this country's historically black colleges, you know just how special those bands can be. They're so talented and so joyful that it hardly seems possible that they could be the source of ritualized violence. But unfortunately, that seems to be the case. As Frank DeFord reports, some of the traditions embraced by various band members have resulted in hospitalizations and numerous criminal prosecutions.
There are marching bands taking the field every Saturday, and they're pretty predictable. The moves, well, you've seen most of them before. And then there are these marching bands. The showpieces of the historically black colleges and universities. In the South, they say you haven't really lived until you've seen this. In fact, the bands are so special that fans aren't really here to watch football, they're here for the show. On this perfect autumn Saturday, perhaps the best two bands in the country are going head-to-head. Southern University's Human Jukebox versus Jackson State's Sonic Boom of the South. And when Legary and Bridgewater made it to Southern University, it was a childhood dream come true.
What was it like when you first put that band uniform on and marched out on the field?
Felt so good.
Did it?
Yes, sir.
And why not? The band is treated like royalty on campus. Special dorms, scholarships, a fanatical booster club, all the trappings of a top Division I athlete. But there's another side to being in the band.
When was the first time that somebody actually hit you?
About a month into the process.
And that's when they hit you with a 2x4.
Yes.
The hazing of freshmen in the band starts as soon as they arrive on campus. And it's not just a few pranks or too much to drink. No, the hazing in these bands is physical, often violent, as upperclassmen repeatedly beat the freshmen with wooden boards. And it could go on for months.
You remember how long it took when you went through it?
Seemed like forever.
Just describe it to me, what it was like.
Some days being terrified, painful.
The painful sessions are organized by section. The drum line, the tubas, the trumpets, each with their own rituals. Ligarian was in the French horn section, and by the end of his freshman year, the beatings, for him anyway, had finally ended. Every season brought a new crop of French horn players to campus, and the year Ligarian became a senior, a freshman named Marcus Heath arrived and was introduced to the hazing process.
We went in there 3 times, and each time we'll get hit with a wood probably about 30 times.
How many times?
30. After that, I could barely even walk.
Marcus made it to practice, but the next day he realized that he had a problem.
When I used the bathroom, blood was coming out.
Blood. Urinated blood.
Yeah.
That told you something, didn't it?
Yeah, that really told me something. Like, I really needed to go to the hospital ASAP.
At the hospital, Marcus had to be put on a ventilator to help him breathe. His kidneys had stopped functioning. 7 upperclassmen in the French horn section had taken turns beating Marcus so badly that he almost died. One of them was Ligarian Bridgewater.
What's it like hitting someone?
The first year I was able to do it, it felt good.
It felt good.
Yes.
Sort of getting back at what had happened to you the year before.
Yes. The process is so intense that it's brewing. Got your blood boiling for the next person. Like a vampire looking for blood.
When you were with Marcus that night, what were the sort of things that you did to him?
Slapped him on the chest, on his back, hit him with the power.
And the 2x4?
Yes. A belt,
Belt too?
shoes. Anything I can basically get my hand on.
We asked Ligarian to demonstrate a typical night of hazing for the freshmen, who the upperclassmen call crabs.
Let's imagine that we're having a crab here. How would it work if it's your turn to haze him?
He'll stand around in the middle with his chairs.
Yeah.
People all get around him in a circle.
Uh-huh.
Kind of bent over in a crutch, basic position.
He's like that. And you're hitting him
Yes, sir.
right in there.
Yes, sir. So they just keep fast. And,
Oof. You're not easing up. That's hard.
it's a competition thing. So the person before me hit him, and the next person gonna come and hit him harder.
How many did Marcus get of that sort?
Probably like 100.
About 100 of those that he got?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty brutal. Was he crying out?
Yes.
And how did you feel at the time?
Caught up in the moment. I wasn't intentionally doing it to hurt him. I was just doing it just because I didn't want the tradition to die.
Why is it a good tradition?
It kind of builds camaraderie, a brotherhood. We played the same instrument. We ate together, studied together, and got hazed together.
This had gotten out of hand, and there was really only one way to stop it, and one way to stop it would be the intervention of the criminal justice system.
Baton Rouge Assistant District Attorney Steve Danielson prosecuted Ligarian and 6 others, all of whom pleaded no contest to second-degree felony battery.
Had the injuries not been so bad, neither one of these young men would have said anything about it. And it's really the reason why this case had to stop it, because to continue that cycle, if it just got progressively worse, somebody was going to die.
Did you realize then how close Marcus came to dying?
Yes, I pray every day that he didn't die. Every day.
In the last 15 years, 20 members of Southern University's band have been arrested for violent hazing, and countless others were expelled from the band. Things got so bad that the school now requires all band members to sign anti-hazing contracts when they arrive at school. We wanted to talk to university officials, but they declined our request. Instead, they sent us this statement which says the school prohibits hazing and actively works to prevent it, and that those who have been beaten ignored Southern's warnings and submitted to hazing. But the issue clearly isn't Southern's alone. In fact, hazing in the top black college marching bands has become almost routine. Violent episodes are frequent, and it isn't just men who have endured the beatings.
The fear was constant in your mind. You're in a dark room, with the blindfold on, with about 3 other people that are taking turns hitting you.
Regina Moore had dreamed of playing in Alabama A&M's show band of the South since she saw them perform when she was a young child. When she arrived at A&M, there were 5 freshmen in her flute section and just 2 seniors. Regina and her Crab sisters figured they'd be in charge next year so they could stop hazing for good, at least for the flutes.
So we said, well, we can just change this,
Uh-huh.
Yes, we could change history, that was our mindset. But one thing I learned about going through a process of this is how pain can change somebody, because by the end of this process, our mindset had changed to, we can't wait to finish so we can do this to the next girl.
You really had changed that much?
That much. And it could be me that, ended up hurting someone.
But once her Crab sister went to the hospital with these injuries, the school found out about the abuse and threw the entire flute section out of school. Regina's father, a Fort Wayne, Indiana police detective, left for Alabama in the middle of the night to pick her up.
That was the first time I actually saw my dad cry. Yeah,
Yeah.
that was my first time seeing him cry, because he was just so happy I was okay, and he just couldn't understand what was going on.
These organizations have really devolved into threats to black life.
Dr. Ricky Jones, a professor at the University of Louisville, has been researching violent activity in black college groups for over a decade.
Is the hazing worse in the bands at these historically black colleges and universities than it is anywhere else?
yes, the physical hazing is worse. It's far worse. What the band has done is they have replicated the black fraternity and sorority culture, so that's where the violence directly comes
The
from.
brutality in the pledging process in black Greek fraternities goes back many years.
Yes, the idea is you sacrifice for what you love.
But why so violent? Dr. Jones says the rituals are about power. Power for a group that historically has been denied it.
The ability to dole out and withstand physical punishment over time has been a part of identity construction in these groups. This has been going on for so long that it is now simply accepted as the way of things. It is simply institutional inertia that nobody knows how to stop.
Beaten with pipes, baseball bats, and beer bottles. That's what Jackson State says happened to freshman members of the Side Boom of the South.
Last year, 22 members of Jackson State's famed drumline were expelled after a particularly violent episode.
Multiple freshman band members revealed that they had been assaulted by these objects.
But despite the brutality,
The band is going to perform. They've been practicing every night, so the band is going to perform.
What you'll find certain members, certain sections put on probation, but not the entire band.
every Saturday that band is out there marching.
Yes, of course.
In fact, Real Sports couldn't find one top black college or university that suspended its band for even one single game. But we did find this place, a sanctuary of sorts, where those who've been hazed elsewhere come for a new life, a chance to march and make music without the threat of violence. Musicians from Grambling, Southern, and several other schools now march here at Norfolk State, free, they say, of hazing. There's one French horn player here that may appreciate the safety more than anyone else. It's Marcus Heath, the young man who was nearly beaten to death at Southern University, now back on the field after a 6-month recovery. But Norfolk State doesn't have the marquee reputation that the top bands had. Back in the big leagues, there's no sign that anything has changed, that any school has really taken the steps necessary to get rid of hazing. And Regina Moore thinks she knows why.
The band is big. You can't bring a band down.
It all comes down to the band is so popular with everybody.
People come to the football games not for the football team, for the band.
They come to see
They
the
come
band.
to see the band.
Well, Frank, this hazing among bands at HBCs, is it any different or any worse than the hazing that routinely goes on at universities nationwide?
Oh, the degree of violence is hugely different. That's one of the problems, that it's all dismissed as hazing. And we think of hazing as pranks and, you know, you've got to put underwear on your head and stand up and sing a song. This is brutality, and that's one of the problems, that the degree is not factored in.
I'm not surprised that officials at Southern wouldn't talk. Is it realistic to think this kind of hazing could have gone on for so long without their knowledge?
No, I think it's very obvious that the schools are aware of this. They give these kind of sham contracts out that you have to sign, which in effect says, I understand that I shouldn't be a victim. The victims and the villains are treated exactly the same. Unlike, say,
And the victims go on and become the villains.
and then they do, and they all say that they can hardly, that even in the depths of their remembrance of what happened to them, they're looking forward to being on the other side.
Exacting some retribution. People have been arrested, others have been prosecuted, statements have been made, contracts have been signed. Is there any evidence that anything has changed or is about to change?
No. And that's why it's obvious that the school presidents and boards of trustees have to step in. The culture is so internalized that the band directors grow out of the bands themselves, and it's almost a cult, I think you could say, Brian, and that's why it's got to come from the very top if anything is to change.
Well, something to keep an eye on. All right, Frank, thanks very much.